Sumabog ang isang barko sa Fort Lauderdale sa Florida.
Bakit naman kaya sumabog ito at may nadamay kaya sa nasabing pagsabog? Alamin po natin yan mula sa mga detalye ng balitang ibabahagi maya-maya. Magandang gabi. Ako po si Rikki Mathay.
Ako si Rikki Alagao, Flores. Ito ang mata ng Agila International. Para naman sa mga headlines ngayong araw ng Martes.
Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Jr. nakatakdang lagdaan ng 2025 proposed national budget sa December 30.
Manila Trench posibleng mag-trigger ng magnitude 8.4 na lindol ayon sa PHIVOLCS.
Qatar at Jordan nangakong susuportahan ng Syria.
Kilauea volcano sa Hawaii muling pumutok.
At ating alamin kung bakit ipinagbawal ng gobyerno ng Albania ang TikTok. Ngayong darating na December 30 ay lalagdaan na ni Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Jr. ang panukalang 6.352 trillion pesos na pambansang budget para sa susunod na taon. Inaasahang dadalo ang mga senador at kongresista sa ceremonial signing ng Pangulong Marcos sa national budget sa Malacanang.
Itong unang pagkakataon na mas matagal na isinibatas ni Pangulong Marcos Jr. ang spending bill ng Pilipinas. Matatandaan na nilagdaan ng Pangulo ang national budget para sa taong 2023 noong December 16, 2022, habang ang spending bill naman para sa taong 2024 ay pinirmahan niya noong December 20, 2023. Paliwanag ng Pangulo, pinag-aralan niya ang mga probisyon ng 2025 national budget dahil marami anyang pagbabago sa hinihiling na pondo ng iba't ibang departamento. Nais din ni Marcos Jr. na tiyakin ang pondo sa susunod na taon ay nakatuon sa mga mahahalagang proyekto na prioridad ng bansa.
Ayon sa PHIVOLCS, may kaugnayan ng Manila Trench sa kamakailan na lindol sa baybayin ng Ilocos Sur kung saan ay pwedeng pagsimulan din ito ng malakas na pagyanig ng lupa. Batay sa analysis ng ahensya, posibleng pagsimulan ng malakas na magnitude 8.4 na lindol ang paggalaw ng segment ng Manila Trench. Paliwanag ng PHIVOLCS, sa ginawang tsunami simulation nila, posibleng lumikha ang lindol na malaking alon na kayang umabot sa 3 hanggang 15 metro ang taas. Sa kalkulasyon din ng ahensya, maaaring dumating ang malaking tsunami ng mabilis pa sa 2 minuto sa Palawig, Zambales. Maaaring tamaan din ng malaking alon na posibleng umabot sa 14.7 meters ang taas ang Vigan, Ilocos Sur. Ang Manila Trench ay isang ocean trench na matatagpuan sa kanlurang bahagi ng Pilipinas na may lalim na umaabot hanggang 5,400 meters.
Ngayong gift-giving season ay muling inabisuhan ng Food and Drug Administration ang mga magulang na mag-ingat sa mga choking hazards tulad ng mga detachable parts ng mga laruan. Ayon sa ahensya, iwasan muna ang pag-abot ng mga toy collectibles na may maliliit na detachable parts sa mga batang nasa edad 3 pababa dahil maaari itong mabulunan dahil dito. Karaniwan kasi ang mga bata na nasa ganitong edad ay may habit na isubo ang kanilang mga kamay, gayon din ang mga bagay na kanilang hawak-hawak. Higit sa choking hazard ay pinasisiguro rin ng ahensya na kapag magbibigay ng laruan sa mga bata ay gawa ito sa non-toxic at lead-free na mga materyales. Kung maaari rin ay basahin ng maigi ang mga label para sa tamang age recommendation sa mga nasabing laruan. Para sa mga insidente ng safety issues ay maaaring makipag-ugnayan sa FDA o kaya ay Department of Trade and Industry.
Ngayong paparating na ang bagong taon ay nakapagtala ang Department of Health ng 25 kaso ng firecracker-related injuries. Ayon po sa Health Department, 23 sa mga biktima ay lalaki at 2 sa mga ito ay babae. Kaya paalala ng DOH sa publiko, iwasan ang paggamit ng mga paputok at gawin na lamang ang mga alternatibong pamamaraan para mag-ingat katulad ng mga tambol, trampeta at iba pang mga instrumentong pampaingay. Inaabisuhan din ng Health Department ang mga magulang na pagbawalan ang mga batang humawak ng anumang paputok para sa pagsalubong ng mapayapang bagong taon.
Bumaba naman po ang bilang ng mga insidente ng physical injury, theft o pagnanakaw at panggagahasa ngayong taong 2024. Ayon sa datos ng Philippine National Police o PNP, mula January 1, 2024 hanggang December 13 ng parehong taon ay umabot sa 12,144 ang bilang ng mga insidente ng pagnanakaw. Mas mababa ito kumpara sa naitalang 12,532 insidente naman noong nakaraang taon. Samantala mula sa 10,405 insidente ng rape noong taong 2023 ay bumaba sa 7,772 ang rape incidents sa Pilipinas ngayong 2024. Nabawasan naman ang 41 insidente ng physical injury ang naiulat ngayong taon. Ayon kay PNP spokesperson Brigadier General Jean Fajardo, ang pagbaba ng mga insidente ng pagnanakaw ay dahil nag-deploy ang PNP ng mga pulis sa mga matataong lugar gaya sa mga convergence points at sa transportation hubs. Patuloy rin anya silang nagpapaalala sa mga employer na i-background check ang mga empleyadong kanilang kinukuha sa trabaho upang hindi mabiktima ng qualified theft cases. Hinikayat rin anya ng PNP ang mga local government units o LGUs hanggang barangay na magpatupad ng mga curfew hours para maiwasan ang mga pag-aaway sa gabi. Dagdag ni Fajardo, pinaigting ng PNP ang educational and information awareness sa mga barangay upang maiwasan ang mga insidente ng rape.
Nakatakdang opisyal na magsimula ang Free Trade Agreement o FTA ng Pilipinas at ng South Korea sa December 31, 2024. Ang kasunduang ito ay inaasahang magbibigay ng mga dekalidad at trabaho at makatutulong sa mga pagpapasigla ng paglago ng ekonomiya ng Pilipinas. Layo din po ng FTA na magbukas ng daan para sa collaboration ng healthcare, carbon reduction, cutting-edge technologies at electric vehicle initiatives ng dalawang bansa.
Plano ng Philippine Army na bumili ng Mid-Range Capability o MRC missile system sa Estados Unidos para palakasin ang depensa ng Pilipinas. Sinabi ni Army Chief Lieutenant General Roy Galido na nakikipag-usap na ang Pilipinas sa Estados Unidos para sa acquisition ng naturang missile system. Anya, malaki ang maitutulong ng missile system sa seguridad ng exclusive economic zone ng bansa. Higit sa US ay nakikipagnegosasyon din ang Pilipinas sa mga kaalyado nitong bansa para sa acquisition din ng iba pang military platforms. Hindi naman nagbigay ng detalye si Galido kung anong eksaktong bilang ng MRC missile systems ang bibilhin ng ating militar.
Inabisuhan ng National Commission of Senior Citizens ang mga octogenarians at nonagerians na mag-apply para sa benepisyong handog ng Expanded Centenarian Law. Ayon kay NCSC Officer in Charge ng Commission Member Dr. Mary Jean Loreche, kailangang mag-apply ang mga kinauukulan para ma-avail ang cash gift na 10,000 piso mula sa gobyerno. Sa ilalim kasi ng Republic Act 11982 o the amendments to the Centenarian Act, ang mga senior citizens na umaabot na sa edad na 80, 85, 90, 95 ay makatatanggap ng cash gift simula January 1, 2025. Magiging 100,000 piso ito kapag sumapit ang isang senior citizen sa edad na 100 taon. Maaring lumapit ang mga kinauukulan sa Office of the Senior Citizens Affairs o kaya sa kanilang local government unit para makakuha ng application forms. Susunod, South Korean opposition gustong patalsikin si Acting President Han Duck-soo.
Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan nagtungo sa Syria.
And US President-elect Donald Trump nais bawiin ang Panama Canal. Mga detalye po ng mga balita niyan at iba pa sa pagbabalik ng Mata ng Agila International.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba, sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa new era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Nagsumite ang main opposition party ng South Korea ng isang bill na nagnanais na patalsikin si Acting President Han Duck-soo. Ayon kay Democratic Party spokesperson Yoon Jong-kun, minadali nila ang pagpasa nito upang maisama ang naturang panukala sa kanilang parliamentary session sa darating na Huwebes. Base sa saligang batas ng South Korea, kapag naipasa na ang isang impeachment bill sa kanilang plenaryo, ay kailangan nila itong pagbotohan sa loob ng 1 hanggang 3 araw. Napilitang isulong ito ng Democratic Party sa parlamento matapos na ipinaglaban ni Acting President Han ang kanyang desisyon ukol sa paglunsad ng isang special counsel investigation ukol sa nabigong martial law declaration ni Yoon Suk-yeol at iba pang mga isinulong ng Democratic Party na akusasyon laban sa gabinete at partido nito. Sa okasyong mapatalsik din ng parlamento si Han Duck-soo bilang acting president ng kanilang bansa ay nakatakdang palitan siya ng kanilang finance minister bilang susunod na acting president. Nababahala naman ang mga eksperto na magdudulot ito ng malaking dagok sa kanilang ekonomiya na bumabangon pa lamang sa naging epekto ng martial law declaration ito noong unang linggo ng Disyembre.
이번 사태로 미국 신행 정부 출범에 대비한 준비 작업이 동력을 잃지 않도록 매주 경제부 총리가 주재하는 대외 경제장관 간담회와 긴밀한 민관 공조 체제를 통해 시기를 놓치지 않고 필요한 대응을 해 나가고자 합니다. 특히 기업 등의 민간 분야 역량을 창의적으로 활용해 나가겠습니다. 그에 발맞춰 우리 외교 역시 국제사회에서 우리 위상과 신뢰를 회복하고 책임 있는 역할을 지속적으로 수행해 나갈 것입니다.
그러나 대내의 불확실성에 따른 시장 변동과 경제 심리 위축 가능성이 여전한 만큼 정부는 경계를 늦추지 않고 민관의 모든 역량을 결집하여 경제를 최대 안정적으로 관리해 나갈 것입니다.
Sinabi ng Sweden na tumanggi ang China sa isang kahilingan ng mga Swedish prosecutors na magsagawa ng investigasyon ukol sa mga nasirang subsea cables. Ayon kay Swedish Foreign Minister Maria Malmer Stenergaard, hindi nakapagtanong sina Prosecutor Henrik Soderman sa mga miyembro ng crew ng Yipeng 3. Hindi rin anila nakapagsagawa ang kanilang grupo ng technical investigations. Wala pa namang komento ang China ukol sa mga pahayag ng Sweden, subalit nangako ito noong una na makikipagtulungan sa Sweden upang maresolba ang nasabing insidente. Dati nang naibalitang may kinalaman umano ang Chinese ship na Yipeng 3 sa mga naputol na kable sa ilalim ng territorial waters ng Sweden noong November 17 at 18.
For purposes of national security and freedom throughout the world, the United States feels that the ownership and control of Greenland is an absolute necessity. Ito ang naging pahayag ni US President-elect Donald Trump sa Truth Social. Nanindigan siya na para sa seguridad ng Washington ay mahalaga na makontrol ng US ang Greenland. Subalit sinabi naman ni Greenland Prime Minister Mathay hindi for sale ang Greenland at hindi ito ibebenta kahit kailan. Nananawagan din si Egede na hindi dapat mawala ang matagal na pakikibaka ng Greenland para sa kalayaan. Sa isang komplikadong sitwasyong pampolitika sa seguridad, ang transatlantic cooperation anya ay napakahalaga, kaya giit ni Egede. Bukas naman sa isang kooperasyon ang Greenland. Ang Greenland ay isang autonomous territory ng Denmark. Ito ang pinakamalaking isla sa mundo at may populasyon na 55,000. Ayon sa isang political analyst o sa ilang political analysts, matagal ng issue para kay Trump ang Greenland. Noong unang termino ni Trump bilang Pangulo ng Estados Unidos, ay kinansela nito ang isang official trip sa Denmark matapos sabihin ng Denmark na hindi for sale ang Greenland.
Nagtungo si Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan sa Syria upang ipaabot nito ang pagsuporta ng Turkiye sa bagong administrasyon ng Damascus.
Bugün Suriye'nin yeniden istikrara kavuşması, Suriye topraklarında terör tehdidinin bertaraf edilmesi ve ekonominin güçlendirilmesi mümkündür. Suriye halkının ülkelerine geri dönüşü mümkündür. Sayın Şara ile yaptığımız görüşmede de bu başlıklara odaklandık. Geçiş döneminin düzenli bir şekilde tamamlanmasının önemine değindik.
Sa kanilang pagpupulong ni Syrian defector leader Ahmed al-Shara ay nangako itong handang tumulong ang Turkiye sa pagpapadali ng proseso ng political transition ng Turkiye at sinabi nitong handa ang kanilang bansang tutulungan nitong makabangon ang bansang winasak ng digmaang kanilang dinanas sa pagpapatumba sa rehimen ni Bashar al-Assad.
Bu amaçları hayata geçirmek için Suriye'de devletin tüm fonksiyonlarıyla ayağa kaldırılması gerekiyor. Türkiye olarak devlet kurumlarının yeniden yapılandırılması ve kapasite inşası alanındaki tecrübelerimizi aktarmaya hazırız. Keza TİKA, Kızılay ve AFAD gibi kurumlarımızla ve özel şirketlerimizle somut çalışmalara destek vermek istiyoruz.
Dagdag pa rito ay nanawagan si Fidan para sa pagkakaisa at pagpapatatag ng mga mamamayan ng Syria habang nasa kritikal pa na bahagi ng adjustment ang kanilang gobyerno. Sabay namang nanawagan ang dalawang opisyal para sa pagtanggal ng international sanctions laban sa bansa. Bagkus, hindi raw ito makatutulong patungo sa progreso ng mga tao sa Syria.
Suriye'ye yönelik yaptırımların kaldırılması, Suriye'nin normalleşmesi ve ülkede güvenliğin sağlanması bakımından son derece mühimdir. Suriye'nin yeniden inşası için de gerekli hazırlıklara bir an önce başlanması gerekmektedir. Suriyeli kardeşlerimizin ülkelerine gönüllü ve güvenli dönüşünü mümkün kılacak ortamın yaratılması ancak bu şekilde mümkün olacaktır. Bu bakımdan uluslararası toplum yeni yönetime güçlü bir destek sağlamalıdır. Bugünkü ziyaretimizin diğer ülkelerden de üst düzey temasları teşvik edeceğini ümit ediyorum.
Sa Syria pa rin, ayon kay de facto Syrian leader Ahmed al-Shara, handa ang Qatar at Jordan na makipag-ugnayan sa bagong administrasyon ng Syria upang matulungan itong makabangon.
يعني الآن عادت السفارة القطرية بعد انقطاع طويل لسوريا وسنبدأ من خلالها يعني تعاون استراتيجي واسع ونحن أيضا وجهنا دعوة للأمير تميم لزيارة سوريا أيضا وإن شاء الله العلاقات ستعود أفضل ما كانت في السابق بآلاف المرات إن شاء الله. قطر لها أولوية خاصة في سوريا أيضا لمواقفها المشرفة تجاه الشعب السوري.
Sa pagbisita ng isang opisyal ng Qatar ay nangako ito na handa ang Qatar na mamuhunan sa energy at port sector ng Syria upang matulungan ito sa pagbangon ng ekonomiya ng bansa na halos 90% ng kanilang populasyon ay nasa ilalim ng poverty line. Tinanggap din ni Al-Shara si Jordanian Foreign Minister Ayman Al-Safadi na nagmamarka sa pangalawang pagbisita ng isang Arab League Foreign Minister simula noong mapatumba ng Hayat Tahrir al-Sham o HTS ang rehimen ni Bashar al-Assad ilang linggo na ang nakalilipas. Ayon kay Al-Safadi ay handa ang Jordan na tulungan ng Syria na makabangon at ma-rehabilitate ang kanilang teritoryo. Ang mga naturang pagpupulong ay naging senyales ng pagbabago ng political landscape ng Middle East kung saan humihina na ang impluwensya ng Iran sa naturang rehiyon at nagbibigay daan para sa pagsibol ng ugnayan ng ibang mga bansa.
والله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الجانب القطري كان دائما صديق للشعب السوري ولا يعني شاركه في كل مراحل الثوره وبقي صامدا على موقفه الى اخر لحظه يعني. فبالتالي نحن تكلمنا عن كل تحديات المرحلة الحالية والمرحلة المستقبلية بما فيها السياسية والتنموية خاصة. وأبدأ الجانب القطري استعداده للبدء في استثمارات واسعة في داخل الأراضي السورية بشتى المجالات ومن أهمها مجال الطاقة ولديهم خبرة عالية في مجال الطاقة في دوليا وعالميا وأيضا في مجال الموانئ والمطارات وإلى آخره يعني. فأعتقد أن المرحلة القادمة ستكون يعني إن شاء الله تعالى مرحلة تنموية بامتياز وسيكون مشاركة لدولة قطر فيها يعني مشاركة فعالة وهادفة إن شاء الله تعالى.
Ipinaubaya na po ng Israeli Army ang 7 Lebanese detainees sa United Nations Peacekeeping Mission. Kinumpirma ng Lebanese Red Cross ang nasabing insidente. Mula sa Razaan na Kura sa Israel ay nilipat na ang mga ito sa Lebanese Italian Hospital sa Tyre City sa southern Lebanon. Magugunitang naging epektibo noong November 26 ang ceasefire sa pagitan ng Israel at ng Hezbollah. Mula noon ay kapwa inakusahan na magkabi ng panig na lumabag sa nasabing ceasefire.
Nahaharap naman ngayon si Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau sa kaliwat ka ng panawagan na siya'y magbitiw na sa pwesto. Matapos ang halos 9 na taong pamamahala ay nanganganib ng Liberal Party ng Canada na mawala ng kapangyarihan sa eleksyon sa susunod na taon. Ayon sa mga eksperto ay dahil sa tinatawag na voter fatigue, pati na rin dahil sa epekto ng inflation at housing crisis ay patuloy na bumababa ang tiwala ng Canadian sa kanilang gobyerno. Base pa sa mga ulat ay nasa lampas 50 miyembro ng kanyang partido ang nanawagan na bumaba na sa pwesto si Trudeau sa harap ng natatanggap niyang batikos ukol sa kanyang mga kontrobersyal na polisiya, pati na rin ang mga naging desisyon nito ukol sa national security at international relations.
When people feel their economic future is in jeopardy, when they believe their children have fewer opportunities than they themselves had in their youth, that's when people are vulnerable to the demagogue who scapegoats the outsider, the other, whether it's immigrants at home or trading partners abroad.
Noong nakaraang linggo lamang ay nagbitiw na sa pwesto ang kanyang finance minister na si Chrystia Freeland dahil sa isang policy dispute tungkol sa government spending. Kasabay nito ay inanunsyo ng pinagsamang koalisyon ng kalabang partido ni Trudeau na pababagsakin nila ang minority liberal government nito.
The people are right to be angry. They've got a prime minister who's more interested in protecting his own job than defending Canadians against Trump. We've got a prime minister who's failed to defend workers from rich CEOs that the Conservatives love, who continue to rip off Canadians and drive up the cost of food and homes. The prime minister has failed. For New Democrats, it's always workers first and not CEOs. And not CEOs who the Conservatives want to defend. So will the prime minister acknowledge he has failed? He has to quit.
Mr. Speaker.
Sa pagkakataong magpasya si Trudeau na bumaba sa kanyang pwesto, tinitingnang posible niyang kapalit ay si former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland, Foreign Minister Melanie Joly, Innovation Minister François-Philippe Champagne at ang former Central Bank Governor na si Mark Carney.
Really are. You know, it's hard not to feel happy when we're like this among liberals, among family, because that's what we really are, a big family. Now, like most families, sometimes we have fights around the holidays. But of course, like most families, we find our way through it. As a country, we've gone through a lot these past years. The pandemic, inflation, so much conflict and suffering around the world, international law being trampled, the very foundations of democracy being attacked. I've been wondering, is there such a thing as precedented times? And if so, could we please have some of those? When I look at you tonight, I'm reminded of the strength of our party, of our history. We're the grits. On est le rouge. We've lived and led through 150 years of Canadian history. We were there for Canadians through the Spanish flu, the Great Depression, 2 world wars, the Cold War. We've seen tough times before, and we pulled through, because when we pull together, when Canadians pull together, nothing, and I mean nothing, can stop us.
Banta si US President-elect Donald Trump ng pagbawi sa kontrol sa Panama Canal. Inakusahan kasi ni Trump ang Panama ng pagpapataw ng labis na singil sa paggamit ng naturang lagusan na nagbibigay daan sa mga barkong tumawid sa pagitan ng Pasipiko at Atlantic Oceans.
Because we're being ripped off at the Panama Canal like we're being ripped off everywhere else. A secure, he just said take it back. That's a good idea. When they gave it to Panama, can you believe that? We would never have done it if we thought what's happening now can happen, and we would never, and we will never, ever let it fall into the wrong hands. But it's falling into the wrong hands. It was not given for the benefit of others by a token of cooperation, but it was given to Panama and to the people of Panama, but it has provisions. You got to treat us fairly, and they haven't treated us fairly. If the principles, both moral and legal, of this magnanimous gesture of giving are not followed, then we will demand that the Panama Canal be returned to the United States of America in full, quickly, and without question. I'm not going to stand for it. So to the officials of Panama, please be guided accordingly.
Nagbabala din si Trump na hindi niya hahayaang mahulog sa maling kamay ang Panama Canal at tila nagbanta rin si Trump laban sa posibleng impluwensya ng China sa naturang passage, kung saan sinabi niyang hindi dapat na pangasiwaan ito ng China.
When President Jimmy Carter foolishly gave it away for $1. During his term in office, it was solely for Panama to manage and not for China or any other country to manage. You see what's going on there? China.
O narito, malaking bahagi ng kanal ay itinayo ng Amerika at pinamahalaan ang teritoryo sa palibot na naturang lagusan ng ilang dekada. Subalit taong 1977, lumagda ang Amerika at Panama sa isang kasunduang nagbigay daan sa pagbabalik ng buong kontrol sa Panama. Ipinasakamay naman ng US ang control sa naturang kanal sa Panama noong taong 1999. Ang naturang waterway po ay mahalaga para sa US imports ng mga auto and commercial goods ng mga container ships mula sa Asia at para sa US exports ng mga commodity kabilang na ang liquefied natural gas. Pumapalo hanggang sa 14,000 na barko ang dumaraan dito kada taon, nakatumbas ang 2.5% ng pandaigdigang seaborne trade.
The United States is the #1 user of the Panama Canal, with over 72% of all transits heading to or from U.S. ports. Think of that. So we built it. We're the ones that use it. They gave it away. Considered one of the one of the great wonders of the world. The Panama Canal opened for business 110 years ago and was built at huge cost to the United States, and it really is big when you consider the lives and the treasure, the equivalent of $1.2 trillion today. You don't hear those numbers.
Samantala, ipinagwalang bahala naman ni Panama President Jose Raul Mulino ang mga banta ni Trump ukol sa pagbawi ng Amerika ng kontrol ng Panama Canal mula sa kanilang bansa.
Quiero expresar de manera precisa que cada metro cuadrado del Canal de Panamá y su zona adyacente es de Panamá y lo seguirá siendo. La soberanía e independencia de nuestro país no son negociables.
Sa isang recorded address na kanyang inilabas sa social media site na X ay iginiit ni Mulino ang soberanya ng kanilang bansa ukol sa sinasabing lagusan. Ipinagtanggol pa niya ang binatikos ni Trump na mataas na taripa na ipinapataw nito para sa mga barkong dumadaan sa naturang waterway, kung saan sinabi niyang matagal na proseso ang pinagdadaanan ng paglabas ng naturang presyo dahil binabase ito sa lagay ng ekonomiyang pandaigdigan. Sa ngayon ay dumadaan sa Panama Canal ang nasa halos 5% ng pangkalahatang kalakalang pantubig na nagbibigay ng halos 3 hanggang 5 bilyong dolyar kada taon sa kanilang bansa.
Las tarifas no son un capricho. Se establecen de manera pública y en audiencia abierta, considerando las condiciones del mercado, la competencia internacional, los costos operativos y las necesidades de mantenimiento y modernización de la vía interoceánica.
Binuweltahan din ni Mulino ang mga akusasyon ni Trump na kinokontrol daw ito ng China, kung kaya't mamarapatin daw ni Trump na kunin na lang uli mula sa mga Panamanian ang pagpapatakbo ng isa sa pinakamalaking lagusan ng international products sa buong mundo. Nanindigan si Mulino na magpakailanman ay hindi napunta sa kahit sinong bansa, kundi sa Panama lamang ang Panama Canal.
El canal no tiene control directo o indirecto ni de China, ni de la Comunidad Europea, ni de Estados Unidos o de cualquier otra potencia. Como panameño rechazo enérgicamente cualquier manifestación que tergiverse esta realidad y seguirá estando en manos panameñas como patrimonio inalienable de nuestra nación y garantizando su uso para el tránsito pacífico e ininterrumpido de naves de todas las naciones.
Bilang pagpapakita naman ng kanyang suporta sa kapwa niya kaalyado sa Mercosur, iginiit din ni Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum ang naturang pahayag ni Mulino. Ayon naman sa mga eksperto ay kanilang mga pahayag ay ginawa nila bilang tugon sa opresibong migration policies na ipatutupad ni Trump sa kanyang pag-upo bilang bagong presidente ng Amerika.
Ahora, ayer también se refirió al tema de Panamá y ahí sí nuestra solidaridad con el presidente de Panamá, que salió muy rápidamente a decir el canal de Panamá es de los panameños, y en efecto el canal de Panamá es de los panameños. Entonces ahí sí nuestra solidaridad, nuestro apoyo al presidente de Panamá, al pueblo de Panamá.
Matatapos ang taong 2024 sa Estados Unidos na walang magaganap na pansamantalang pagsasara ng gobyerno. Ito ay matapos ipasa ng Kongreso ang batas ukol sa pondo ng pamahalaan para sa darating na taon. Pearl Regasyon po para sa balita.
Noong Sabado ay pinasa ng Kongreso ng Estados Unidos ang madaliang pagpigil ng pagsasara ng gobyerno ilang araw bago ang kasagsagan ng holiday travel sa bansa.
I ask unanimous consent that the Senate resume legislative session, and the only remaining amendments in order to H.R. 82 be the following: Paul, 3346, Paul, 3352, Cruz, 3360, and Crapo, 3331. That there be 60 affirmative vote threshold for the adoption of the amendments, that upon disposition of the Crapo amendment, Senator Lee be recognized to make a budget point of order, that upon disposition of the point of order, the pending amendments and motion be withdrawn, H.R. 82 be considered read a third time, and the Senate vote on passage of the bill, with 60 affirmative votes required for passage. I have very good news for my colleagues and for the country. Democrats and Republicans have just reached an agreement that will allow us to pass the CR tonight before the midnight deadline.
Sa 85-11 vote, pinasa ng Senado na kontrolado ng Democratic Party ang panukalang batas na ipagpatuloy ang pondo ng gobyerno 38 minuto matapos itong mapaso hating gabi ng Sabado. Dadalhin ang panukala sa White House kung saang inaasahan lalagdaan ito ni Pangulong Joe Biden upang maisabatas. Ang pagbotong ito ang tumapos sa masalimuot na linggo kung saan tinali ni President-elect Donald Trump at ng kanyang billionaire ally na si Elon Musk ang paunang bipartisan deal na ikinagulo ng Kongreso. Inalis sa huling bersyon ng panukala ang ilang probisyon na isinusulong ng Democrats. Inakusahan ng mga ito ang Republicans na anyay bumigay sa pamembressure ng bilyonaryong wala namang karanasan sa gobyerno. Pearl Rugasyon para sa mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Ayon sa mga health experts, naghahanda ang mga miyembro ng Presidential Transition Team ni US President-elect Donald Trump na umalis sa World Health Organization o WHO. Matagal nang kritiko si Trump ng WHO, isang beses din niyang tinawag na puppet ng China ang nasabing ahensya. Sinisisi rin ni Trump ang WHO dahil biguan niya ang ahensya na panagutin ng China sa maagang pagkalat ng COVID-19 virus. Nangako rin ito na kukunin niya ang mga kontribusyon ng Washington sa WHO at ibibigay sa mga domestic organizations.
But I appreciate it that they said that. It's very nice.
Susunod, Honda, Nissan at Mitsubishi nagkasundo na sa isang major merger.
TikTok pinagbawal sa Albania.
At NBA veteran DeMarcus Cousins maglalaro muli para sa Pilipinas. Iba pa pong detalye ng mga balita sa pagbabalik ng mata ng Agila International.
Handa na ba kayo?
Kikita ni Mela Jane Veloso at ng
parata ni dating Pangulong Duterte
na bangag natin ang presidente.
I think it's the fentanyl.
Ang parata ni dating Pangulong Duterte isunog ang People's Initiative.
Para naman pakialam yung senador o yung miyembro ng Congress sa People's Initiative.
Walang gamot sa kakapalan ng mukha mo.
Kamara nanawagan ng ceasefire sa Senado. Kaugnay sa issue ng
mga tinuturi kong mga kaibigan ay nag-traitor pass.
Ito ba yung kinalaman din naman ng Vice Presidente na ibigay?
Intended my resignation as the Secretary of Education effective.
Ang dahilan ng kanyang pagbibigay.
Sa Indonesia, si dismissed
Your Honor, hindi ko po alam.
pagdinig ng Senado sa issue ng sexual abuse.
Wala pong katotohanan yung kanilang mga sinabi.
Kanya po itong itinanggi ang mga alegasyon lang.
Sa pagdinig ng Senado.
I and I alone take full legal, moral responsibility.
Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte at si tayong Vice President Sara.
Pag pinatay ako, patayin mo si BBM, si Lisa Araneta at si Martin Romales.
Yan ay aking papalagan.
Handa ka na ba sa 2025?
Ang Net 25 Year-End Report.
Martes, December 31, alas 8 ng gabi.
Dito sa
Net 25.
Muling pumutok ang Kilauea Volcano bilang isa sa mga aktibong bulkan sa Hawaii. Tuloy-tuloy naman ang pagbuga ng volcanic smog na naglalaman ng sulfur dioxide. Plano ng United States Geological Survey Hawaiian Volcano Observatory na itaas pa ang alert level sa bulkan. Ito na po ang pangalawang beses na pumutok ang Hawaiian Volcano ngayong taon kung saan noong buwan ng Setyembre pa ang unang pag-alboroto nito.
Ikinasawi ng isang individual ang pagsabog ng isang barko sa Fort Lauderdale sa Florida. Ayon sa lokal na ulat, sugatan naman ang 5 katao na agarang dinala sa pagamutan dahil sa tinamong traumatic injuries. Nadamay rin ang isa pang barko na naging sanhi ng pagkalat pa ng apoy sa daungan. Natagpuan naman na palutang-lutang ang katawan ng nasawing biktima matapos ang ilang oras na pag-apula sa apoy. Sa inisyal na investigasyon ng Fort Lauderdale Fire Rescue, pinaniniwala ang sumabog ang barko habang nagpapakarga ito ng gasolina.
Higit sa 150 katao ang nailigtas matapos tumirik ang ski lift sa Winter Park sa Colorado. Ayon sa lokal na ulat na pinatigil ng mga otoridad ang operasyon ng ski lift dahil sa pinsalang natagpuan sa support beam. Nasa 174 na katao ang unti-unting ibinaba ng mga rescue team sa kani-kanilang gondolas gamit ang mga lubid. Wala namang naitalang napahamak o nasaktan sa nasabing insidente.
Sa halip po na maging joyride ay naging ride of terror ang isang mechanical tower sa isang amusement park sa Acapulco, Mexico. Kita sa video ang unti-unting tumutumbang mechanical tower. Ayon sa lokal na ulat, 5 katao ang nasaktan sa insidente. Maraming mga tao naman ang natakot sa pagbagsak ng park ride kung saan pinagmulan ito ng kaguluhan sa lugar. Agad namang humingi ng paumanhin ang local administration ng amusement park para pakalmahin ang mga bisita. Dahil rito ay nagpatupad ng mahigpit na security arrangement ang parke para matiyak ang seguridad ng mga bisita nito. Sa ngayon ay hindi pa tukoy ang sanhi ng pagbagsak ng mechanical tower.
Nag-plead na not guilty si Luigi Mangione sa mga kaso murder at New York State terror. Si Mangione ay suspect sa pagpatay kay United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson sa Manhattan Street. Sakaling mapatunayang may sala, nakaharap siya sa habang buhay na pagkakakulong na walang posibilidad na humingi ng parol. Ayon sa legal team ni Mangione, nag-aalala sila sa karapatan ng kanilang kliyente sa isang makatarungang paglilitis. Inakusahan din nila ang mga federal and state prosecutors ng paghahayag ng mga magkasalungat na legal theories. Nakakalito rin nila at unusual ang mga diskarte ng prosecution team.
Ilang miyembro ng Workers Union na kumakatawan sa higit sa 10,000 barista ng Starbucks ang sumali sa isang 5 araw na strike sa Los Angeles, Chicago at Seattle. Inirereklamo ng mga barista ang kanilang sahod, kakulangan sa staff at schedule sa trabaho.
Starbucks workers are on strike today here in LA and the surrounding area, protesting against the outstanding unfair labor practice violations that the company has still failed to settle with our union. Additionally, our path forward that we forged with the company in February has been violated by the company for a few months now, and we will no longer accept poor bargaining and bad faith bargaining. We want a contract. We've been fighting for it for years, and the delays and the disrespectful offers to workers will not be accepted anymore.
Umaasa rin ang mga barista na makikipag-usap sa kanilang management ng Starbucks upang mabigyan sila ng sapat na sahod para makapagbayad nila sila ng kanilang mga upa sa bahay at makabili rin ng mga pagkain. Subalit, ayon naman sa Starbucks, ang mga hinihiling na aumento ng Workers United gaya ng agarang pagtaas sa minimum na sahod ng hourly partners ay hindi kaya ng kumpanya. Hamon ng mga barista, magpakita muna ang Starbucks ng isang seryosong economic proposal bago matapos ang year-end contract deadline. Inisnab din ng mga barista ang offer ng Starbucks na no immediate wage hike pero may 1.5% increase naman sa sahod sa mga susunod na taon. Formal lang nagkasundo ang Honda at Nissan Motors na ilulunsad na nila ang proseso patungo sa isang major merger.
中国勢の台頭、それから新興勢力含めてですね、 だいぶその自動車構図が今変わりつつあるということで、それは何を意味するかというと、自動車モビリティというですね、観点でその価値そのものが変わっていくというふうに考えています。
Ang naturang pagsasanib puwersa ay magreresulta sa pangatlong pinakamalaking automaker group at pangalawang pinakamalaking automaker manufacturer naman sa Asian market. Dagdag pa rito ay tinitignan din ng Mitsubishi Motors ang posibilidad ng kanilang pagsali sa naturang merger upang magbigay daan naman sa mas maraming pondo patungo sa muling pagbuhay ng Japanese auto industry.
単純計算となりますが、両社の売上規模は合計30兆円以上、4人社の合計台数は750万台と、経営統合が実現した場合は、グローバルの自動車メーカーの中ではトップクラスに入る規模感となります。
Dagdag pa ng presidente ng Honda na si Toshihiro Mibe, susubukan ng Honda at Nissan na pag-isahin ang kanilang operations sa ilalim ng isang major holdings company. Papangunahan naman ng Honda ang pamamahala sa naturang kumpanya, ngunit papanatilihin pa rin ng conglomerate ang parehas na brand sa merkado. Sa pagkakataong matuloy na itong mega merger ay mananatiling Toyota at Volkswagen na lang ang kanilang kakompetensya sa global market. Sa ngayon ay nahihirapan ang mas maliliit na kumpanyang makipagtapatan sa pagdating ng electric vehicles o EV sa international community at ang dagsaan ng iba't ibang Chinese automakers sa pandaigdigang merkado.
最終的にはやはり今一度、世界をリードしたいというふうに思っておりますので、その中の、今日はその一歩目の検討というふうに理解していただければいいと思います。
Mula sa pag-usad ng teknolohiya sa mundo ay nakapag-develop ang mga mananaliksik sa South Korea ng isang exoskeletal suit para pumakalakad muli ang mga taong may sakit na paraplegia. Itinampok ng Exoskeleton Laboratory Team ng Korean Advanced Institute of Science and Technology ang prototype ng kanilang exoskeletal suit. Ang suit na ito ay tinuguri ang walk-on suit F1 at kayang tulungan ang isang paraplegic na makalakad sa bilis na 3.2 kilometers per hour. Gayun din na matulungan silang makaakyat sa mga hagdanan. Ang walk-on suit ay gawa sa aluminum at titanium composition na may bigat na aabot sa 50 kilo. Kaya rin ng suit na matulungan ng users nito na mabalanse ang katawan nito sa pagkilos mula na rin sa mga sensors. Pinaaandar naman ang suit na ito ng 12 electronic motors na kayang mag-simulate ng kilos ng isang kasukasuan ng isang taon habang ito ay naglalakad. Ayon kay Park Jong-soo, isang miyembro ng team, na-inspire sila sa pelikulang Iron Man kaya nalikha nila ang naturang suit para makatulong sa mga tao.
저희 로봇의 궁극적인 목표는 장애인분들의 일상생활에 녹아들여서 실제로 도움을 줄 수 있는 그런 로봇을 만드는 게 저희의 목표거든요. 그래서 그게 가능하려면 지금은 경기장에 이런 조금은 정제된 환경 속에서 로봇을 운영해 왔지만 이제 저희의 다음 목표는 경기장 밖으로 나가서 바람이 불고 혹은 지면이 좀 울퉁불퉁하고 갑자기 좀 새로운 것들이 튀어나오더라도 다 대응할 수 있는 그런 로봇을 만드는 게 저희의 목표입니다.
Ipinagbawal ng gobyerno ng Albania ang TikTok ng isang taon matapos ang trahedyang sinapit ng isang 14 anyos na batang lalaki. Ayon sa lokal na ulat, nasawi ang schoolboy sa pananaksak ng kanyang kaklase nitong November lamang. Nagkaroon umano ng away sa social media ang dalawa na naging mitsa ng peligro sa buhay ng biktima. Ang hakbang na ipagbawal ang TikTok sa Albania ay paraan ng gobyerno nito para ma-monitor ang epekto ng social media sa mga kabataan. Naglatag rin ang isang action plan ng Albania na layong palakasin ang safety mechanism sa kanilang mga paaralan, gayon din na mapahusay ang relasyon sa pagitan ng mga mag-aaral, mga magulang at ng eskwelahan. Sa ngayon, inoobserbahan pa rin ng Albania kung ano ang magiging tugon ng ibang bansa sa kanilang hakbang at kung ano ang magiging sagot ng TikTok sa ban. Magugunita na nitong November ay inaprubahan sa Australia ang total social media ban sa mga kabataang nasa edad 16 pababa.
Nagkasundo na po si former NBA All-Star center DeMarcus Cousins at ang kupunan ng Strong Group Athletics sa kanilang kampanyang makabawi sa 34th Dubai International Basketball Championships sa United Arab Emirates. Opisyal nang tinanggap ng 6'10" big man ang responsibilidad na maging kapitan ng Pinoy-based squad bilang opisyal na pagtatapos sa kanyang NBA career. Naging journeyman ang veteran big sa kanyang 12 taong paglalaro sa NBA mula sa mga koponan ng Sacramento Kings, New Orleans Pelicans, Golden State Warriors, Houston Rockets, Los Angeles Clippers, Milwaukee Bucks at Denver Nuggets. Nagtapos din si Cousins ng may 4-time NBA All-Star honors and 2-time All-NBA second team member nods. Noong taong 2023 naman ay naglaro ito para sa Puerto Rico, sa koponan ng Mets de Guaynabo, sa Taiwan para sa Taiwan Beer Leopards at Taiwan Mustangs bago ito mapunta sa Zamboanga Valientes para sa 2024 Asian Tournament. Kamakailan lamang ay naglaro ito para sa WUXI sa 2024 FIBA 3-on-3 World Tour Circuit.
Nakagawa po ng panibagong record ang mga tagahanga ng isang football club matapos silang paulanan ng halos 20,000 stuffed toys ang football pitch ngayong gabi. Makikita sa video ang pagtapo ng mga tagahanga ng naturang koponan ng mga stuffed toys papunta sa football pitch noong halftime ng kanilang laro laban sa Bariacano. Kasabay ng batuhan ng hiyawan ay kinatuwa naman ng lahat ng mga manlalaro at manggagawang nasa Benito Villamaran Stadium. Nais kasing bigyan ng regalo ng mga fans ng rival o Real Betis ang mga taong naapektuhan sa pagragasa ng Storm Dana noong nakaraang Oktubre. Bukod rito ay binibigay ng naturang koponan ang kanilang kabuang kita sa gabi para naman sa mga pamilya sa Valencia, Spain na nagtamo ng higit sa 200 kaswalidad. Ang taunang tradisyon ng Real Betis Football Club na binansagang Lluvia de Peluches na sa salitang Ingles ay literal na rain of stuffed toys ay naglalayong magpamahagi ng mga laruan para sa mga batang nangangailangan. Tinalo nilang dati nilang record na 19,000 stuffed toys na kanilang ginawa noong taong 2021. Ngayong holiday season sa Shandong Province ay dinarayo ng mga turista ang 12-meter tall na pailaw na ito. Panoorin nyo. Ayon sa lokal na ulat, ang figure na ito ay nilikha para sa 44th Bautu Spring Light Fair kung saan ang imahe na ito ay nakabase sa iconic na character sa Chinese television series na My Fair Princess na si Xia Yuhe. Si Xia Yuhe ay isang babae na nakilala at napaibig kay Emperor Qianlong sa Daming Lake. Dahil rito ay marami ang nagpapakuha ng litrato sa naturang malaking pailaw, gayon din ang nagmasid sa artwork na ito.
At dahil sa bihira at kakaibang kulay ng kanilang mga balahibo, ay dinagsa ng mga bisita ang Chiang Mai Night Safari sa Thailand para panoorin ang tinaguriang Golden Tigers na sina Ava and Luna. Ang dalawang tigers na ito ay ipinanganak sa zoo at itong buwan ng Hunyo lamang sila nag-debut sa Tiger Show. Dahil sa kakaibang itsura ng dalawang tigre, ay pinagkaguluhan sila sa social media hanggang sa naging viral na nga ang mga ito. Dito na diragsa ng mga bisita at turista ang mga hayop. Napapanood ang dalawang tigre sa loob ng 500-seater stadium 4 na beses sa isang linggo. Itinatampok ng safari show ang agility at obedience ng dalawang Golden Tigers. Samantala, ayon kay Tiger Trainer Pachari Pipatwongchai, hindi basta-basta mahahanap ang mga Golden Tabby Tigers na ito dahil resulta ito ng animal breeding. Ayon naman po sa Miami Zoological Wildlife Foundation, nasa critically low level na pala ang populasyon ng mga Golden Tigers, kaya karamihan sa mga ito ay nasa pangangalaga na ng mga zoos at iba pang pasilidad. Ang Golden Tiger ay isang color variation ng Bengal Tiger mula na rin sa nakuha nitong recessive genes. Ayon po yan sa website ng Thai National Park. Ang karaniwang katangian ng isang golden tiger ay mayroon itong makakapal na balahibo na kulay light gold, mapuputlang binti at kupas na orange stripes.
Ayun, ang cute. Ang cute talaga kapag medyo kuting pa, no? Pag lumaki yan, ako medyo...
Ay, nako. Alam ba, pangarap ko dati yan magkaroon ng tiger.
Wish natin pwede, di ba?
Oo, kaya lang nagkaroon ako ng... Parang namasyal ako sa zoo ng mga puro tigers. Medyo napalapit ako. Actually, medyo malayo-layo pa lang ako. Hindi ko alam kung kakayanin kung makasama sila sa bahay. Talaga medyo malakas yung kanilang animal scent. Ayan. Pero nagkaroon naman tayong pareho ng tigers. Baby tigers ang yung aming mga pusa sa bahay.
Tama.
Ano pangalan ng pusa mo, Nina?
Si Pochito.
Si Pochito. Ako
Cute-cute
naman si
niya.
Salem.
Ayun.
Ayan, Salem.
Hi, Pochito and Salem.
Pochito, hello.
Babatiin niyo
Ako,
ang
syempre, naghihintay sila sa atin ngayon sa ating mga bahay, katulad ng iba nating mga kaibigan.
Tama.
Na talaga namang kasama ang kanilang mga pamilya ngayong gabi. So, mula po sa amin ni Nina, happy holidays.
Happy holidays po sa ating lahat. Nako, ito na talaga yun. Patapos na ang taon.
Syempre, Nina, walang holiday sa atin dahil magkikita-kita pa rin tayo bukas.
Tama. Yun naman ang exciting part doon. Kaya hindi nyo muna kami mamimiss.
Wag muna.
Baka nga, hindi naman din sila magsasawa sa atin. Kasi tingnan mo naman tayo.
Syempre, dahil narito tayo para maghatid ng balita.
Diba? Very masigla ang gabi-gabi.
Yes, and you look so good, by the way.
And you look so good, by the way, Rikki. Nasa Mutual Admiration Club po kasi kami.
Nagkataon lang po na pareho kami naka-red ngayon.
Bukas magkakataon din yan. Ang tabayanan po ninyo.
Parindigan natin yan. At tandaan po, narito kami ni Nina para maghatid ng balita saan mang dako ng mundo. Muli, ako po si Rikki Mathay.
Ako si Nina Rikki, Alagao, Flores. Ito po ang mata ng Agila International. Para rin naman sa mga balitang nangyari din sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo, punta tayo kay Alma Angeles para sa mata ng Agila World News. Take it away, Alma.
Thank you, Nina and Rikki. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alma Angeles for Net 25 World News. On tonight's headlines. Hawaii's Kilauea volcano roars back to life, sending lava shooting into the sky early Monday morning. The Philippines moves to bolster its defenses, defending the deployment of a U.S. missile system and plans to acquire its own despite pushback from China over South China Sea tensions. And the potential shakeup in Japan's auto industry, Honda and Nissan are in talks about a historic merger as competition from Chinese EV makers heats up. And the news starts now. One of the world's active volcanoes has erupted again. Take a look. At about 2 o'clock Monday morning, U.S. time, Hawaii's Kilauea volcano began spewing lava into the air. Kilauea put on a spectacular show. The volcano spewed lava more than 70 meters into the air along with a plume of toxic gas. The Hawaiian Volcano Observatory expects the activity to go on for a while, and there are no immediate threats to infrastructure, but the smog from Kilauea is expected to be severe. It's a mix of water vapor, carbon dioxide, and sulfur dioxide. People are being advised to stay indoors, especially those with cardiac or respiratory issues. Kilauea has been erupting since 1983. This year, it erupted in June and again in September, and today's activity drew crowds of visitors to Hawaii Volcanoes National Park to have a first-hand look at the eruption. Kilauea is one of the top tourist attractions on Hawaii's Big Island. Meanwhile, a Swiss air flight from Bucharest to Zurich was forced to make an emergency landing in Graz, Austria, after smoke filled the cabin and cockpit. All 79 people on board, including 5 crew members, were evacuated safely. However, 12 passengers required medical attention and 1 crew member was airlifted to a hospital. Their condition remains unclear. The airline said engine issues prompted the aborted flight and is working with authorities to determine the cause. Swiss International Airlines, part of the Lufthansa Group, has arranged special flights to bring passengers to Zurich. And tragedy in Turkey as an explosion rocks an explosives factory in Balıkesir, killing at least 12 people and injuring 4 others. The blast occurred in the Karasit district, south of Istanbul, at a plant that produces munitions and explosives for domestic and international markets. The explosion caused part of the building to collapse. Local Governor Ismail Ustagulu confirmed the details, while Interior Minister Ali Yerlikaya said the cause remains unknown. Sabotage has been ruled out and an investigation is underway. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan expressed his condolences, saying he's deeply saddened by the loss of lives. And a Russian cargo ship, Ursa Major, sank in the Mediterranean Sea between Spain and Algeria after an engine room explosion, according to the Russian Foreign Ministry. 14 of the 16 crew members were rescued and brought to Spain, while 2 remain missing. The ship, operated by Oberolonjidiska, a company linked to Russia's defense ministry, was en route from St. Petersburg to Vladivostok, carrying 2 giant port cranes and part of its parts for icebreakers. Unverified footage showed the vessel listing heavily with its bow submerged. Rescue operations, including Spanish Navy ships, brought the crew to Cartagena. The cause of the explosion is under investigation. The ship, built in 2009 and previously named Sparta III, had last transmitted its location Monday night. Tensions between the U.S. and China over Taiwan are escalating, with experts warning about shifts in nuclear deterrence. A CSIS study highlights alarming changes in military capabilities. MIT's Charles Glazer says China's growing nuclear arsenal has reshaped the landscape. Take a look.
And so unlike 2 or 3 decades ago, where the United States arguably could destroy virtually all of the Chinese force, now it almost certainly can't. And depending upon the timing and scenario, it may have a very large force. And I would argue that in a sense, the United States, once forces are mobilized, the United States cannot even significantly limit damage. And that's a whole debate, and we can get into that. But that changes the context in a straight scenario, because earlier, China might have been deterred by the possibility that the United States was likely to use nuclear weapons or could gain an advantage by launching a massive attack and put China at a major nuclear disadvantage. And now it arguably can't do that. So that's one of the reasons that people think a conventional war is now more likely, is because the nuclear balance, or the balance of nuclear capabilities has changed significantly.
He also brought up a stark reality when it comes to which side might blink first in a standoff.
A few decades ago, China had very little capability to invade Taiwan. Now it at least can imagine winning. And I think your earlier war games show that. So it couldn't be sure it was going to win, but it could plausibly think it might win. And if it was an urgent situation, maybe it would run that risk. And so that's also very different. So just to say these are 2 military technical type reasons that we worry about war being more likely, putting aside what China's desires are, even holding them constant.
Now, what does this mean for the region? He argues that these shifts make a conventional war over Taiwan more likely. And he points to 2 big reasons. First, China now has the military ability to imagine a successful invasion of Taiwan. And second, the U.S. has lost its previous edge in limiting damage in a nuclear scenario.
Then in an important sense, I think China does have an advantage in that I believe it cares more about Taiwan than the United States does. And I think the United States should keep that in mind and be aware of that, which I don't think it works to the United States' disadvantage, but nevertheless it's important. And the argument is there's no difference in capabilities. Both sides can inflict essentially the same amount of damage in an all-out war. So if I'm threatening you with all-out war and you're threatening me with all-out war, the side that cares more will be less willing to back down. And so I think in a certain sense, the United States is in a bad situation over Taiwan, just when you look at it from a military and strategic perspective. Adding in that political point. Now that raises the question, which maybe we'll talk about later, I don't know, is whether the United States should try to regain its nuclear advantage.
The bottom line, with both countries ramping up their military capabilities, Taiwan remains a high-stakes flashpoint, and analysts are warning that even the smallest miscalculation could lead to devastating consequences. A bold new Taiwanese TV drama is pushing boundaries by tackling a subject many avoid: war with China. Now, 0 Day, set to premiere next year, imagines a gripping and unsettling conflict between the two nations, exploring themes of freedom, unity, and survival. But creating this groundbreaking series hasn't been easy, with its crew facing funding struggles, casting challenges, and fears of backlash from Beijing.
An upcoming Taiwanese TV drama, 0 Day, promises to show Taiwanese audiences what a war with China might look like. It's an unprecedented production, confronting a topic that remains too sensitive for many Taiwanese filmmakers, and with creators facing indirect censorship from China. The 10-episode series is set to be released next year, but an extended trailer released in July has already set off buzz in Taiwan, where residents have for many years considered a war with China unlikely. In recent years, though, China has stepped up war games, simulated attacks, and blockades of the island. Beijing maintains democratically governed Taiwan is Chinese territory, while the government in Taipei rejects that claim. The trailer for 0 Day focuses on several imagined scenarios should a war between China and Taiwan break out. It teased a global financial collapse, the activation of Chinese sleeper agents, and panicked residents trying to flee the island. Without freedom, Taiwan is not Taiwan, says a fictional Taiwan president in a speech, urging unity after declaring war on China. The live feed gets cut off, replaced by a Chinese state television anchor who tells Taiwanese to surrender and to report hidden pro-independence activists to landing Chinese soldiers. Speaking to Reuters, showrunner Zheng Xinmei said Taiwanese should confront the fear of invasion rather than pretend it will never happen.
When we plan this drama, we hope to make people think, would they trade away their freedoms for power or for an enormous sum of money? When faced with the temptation, what will the Taiwanese people choose?
But for the series crew, confronting the idea in fiction has meant real challenges, from funding and casting to finding places to film. Zheng said more than half of the crew of 0 Day asked to be anonymous on the crew list. Some, including a director, pulled out of production at the last minute over worries it might jeopardize their future work in China or the safety of family members working there.
Those of us who worked on this production hope that this drama, which tackles such a taboo topic, becomes popular. That would open a door for other creators to not be too concerned about the China issue.
For many Taiwanese artists and entertainers, China is a much larger and lucrative market for film and television. But Beijing has regularly called out Taiwan artists who are seen as violating China's political ideology or have threatened to blacklist those unwilling to cooperate.
The Philippines Defense Minister Gilberto Teodoro defended the deployment of a U.S. medium-range missile system and plans to acquire its own amid China's objections. He said any deployment and procurement of assets related to the Philippines' security and defense fall within its own sovereign prerogative and are not subject to any foreign veto. Teodoro said calling the use of the Typhoon missile during joint exercises legitimate, legal, and beyond reproach. Philippine Army Chief Roy Garrido confirmed negotiations to acquire a mid-range missile system, citing its feasibility and adaptability. A satellite image from September 13, 2024 shows the Typhoon missile system stationed at Lawag International Airport. The system, capable of launching cruise missiles, was introduced for joint exercises earlier this year, drawing strong criticism from Beijing. China has urged Manila to withdraw the system, warning against escalating tensions. 20 years after the tsunami that shattered Indonesia, Sada still hopes her lost son, Siddiq, will find his way home.
Sadiq would have been 26 years old. But 20 years ago, he and his mother, Sauda, were swept inland by a vicious tsunami which separated them. She lost Sadiq.
This is the mosque where I was separated from Sadiq. And the house next to the mosque I was rescued at.
Sauda, who like many Indonesians goes by one name, says she vividly remembers the sound of the rumbling earth when a 9.1 magnitude earthquake struck the Indian Ocean on Boxing Day in 2004. The tsunami killed 230,000 people across the coastlines of India, Sri Lanka, Thailand, and Indonesia, making it one of the deadliest disasters in recorded history.
When the quake happened, my children scattered out from the house, and I told them to run towards the mosque. I did not run. As I heard a rumbling noise, I lay down holding Sadiq tight. And I thought it was just the wind. I prayed to God and asked him what was happening. And then I came back to my house when suddenly I saw the wave approaching like a snake.
Sampai ke jalan, saya lihatlah ayah dari ujung sana udah jalan kayak ular.
She says she remembers holding on to Sadiq tightly while shouting at her 7 other children to run. In the aftermath, Sauda was reunited with only 6 of her children, as well as then 6-year-old Sadiq. Her 20-year-old Titan was never found. The family accepted the fact that she was one of the victims of the tsunami and was buried in a mass graveyard. But over the years, Sauda and her family have held on to the hope that Sadiq is still alive and would find his way back to them.
Saya kepingin kok masih saya hidup.
If he is still alive and I'm still alive, I want him to come home and for us to see each other before I die.
Jumpa sama saya sebelum saya mati. Tapi kalau dia udah
But if he is gone, I wholeheartedly accept that that is God's will. But I still believe he is alive.
Cuma kita kan nggak tahu. Yang tahu semua kan Allah Ta'ala.
We don't know, only God knows. If he is alive, please tell him to come home and see me before I die. That is my wish if he is still alive.
Tapi kalau dia masih ada. Cuma kalau nggak ada, apa yang saya bilang?
A 33-year-old Guatemalan citizen faces murder and arson charges after allegedly setting a woman on fire and watching her burn to death on a New York City subway train over the weekend. Take a look.
Police have charged a man they say set a woman on fire on a New York City train and watched her burn to death Sunday morning. Sebastian Zepeda, a 33-year-old Guatemalan citizen, was arrested on a subway train that same afternoon. Police say he had a lighter in his pocket and that his clothing matched that of the suspect. New York City Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch gave more details at a Sunday press conference after the arrest.
As the train pulled into the station, the suspect calmly walked up to the victim, who was in a seated position at the end of a subway car. The suspect used what we believe to be a lighter to ignite the victim's clothing, which became fully engulfed in a matter of seconds. Officers who were on patrol on an upper level of that station smelled and saw smoke and went to investigate. What they saw was a person standing inside the train car, fully engulfed in flames. With the help of an MTA employee and a fire extinguisher, the flames were put out. Unfortunately, it was too late, and the victim was pronounced on the scene.
On Monday, Zepeda was charged with murder and arson. Police do not believe that he and the victim, who has not been identified, knew each other or had any prior interaction. Zepeda entered the U.S. without authorization in 2018 and was deported to Guatemala a few days later. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security said in a statement it was unclear when he had unlawfully re-entered.
Big changes could be coming to Japan's auto industry. Honda and Nissan announced that they're in talks about a potential merger in a groundbreaking move for 2 of the country's biggest car makers.
A historic pivot for Japan's auto industry is underway. Honda and Nissan announced on Monday that they have started talks towards a potential merger. The move underlines the threat Chinese EV makers now pose to some of the world's heavyweight car makers. The integration would create the world's third largest auto group by vehicle sales after Toyota and Volkswagen, and would also give Nissan and Honda a chance to share resources in the face of intense competition. The companies also announced that smaller Mitsubishi, in which Nissan is top shareholder, was also considering joining. The chief executives of all three held a press conference in Tokyo. Honda CEO Toshihiro Mibe.
There is a rise of Chinese power and emerging forces, and the structure of the automobile industry is changing. What this means is that I believe that the value itself in terms of automobiles and mobility will change. Ultimately, we would like to lead the world once again. And you can think that today's discussion is the first step in consideration towards that direction.
Honda is Japan's second largest automaker and Nissan is its number 3. A deal would mark the biggest reshaping in the global auto industry since Fiat Chrysler and PSA merged in 2021 to create Stellantis. The two companies said they'd aim to wrap up talks around June 2025 and then set up a holding company by August 2026. Honda has a market capitalization of more than $40 billion, while Nissan is valued at about $10 billion. Honda said it will appoint the majority of the holding company's board. In a separate online press conference with the Foreign Correspondents Club of Japan on Monday, former Nissan chairman Carlos Ghosn gave his reaction to the news. He said he did not believe the Honda-Nissan alliance would be successful and that the two automakers were not complementary.
The first thing that you look at when you want to envision an alliance or a partnership is a complementarity between the two partners. Well, I look at the complementarity between Honda and Nissan and I see none. Okay, there's no complementarity. The two companies are two Japanese companies. They are strong in the same fields. They are weak in the same fields. Both of them have very developed technologies. That means from an industrial point of view, there is duplication everywhere. So industrially, for me, it doesn't make sense. I personally don't think that if this merger takes place or this alliance takes place, personally, I don't think it's going to be successful. Again, because too much duplication and not enough complementarity. And again, don't forget that Honda is an engineering organization. Engineers in Japan are talented, but they're very proud also. In front of them, they have also a very strong engineering organization in Nissan. Very proud of what they do and having developed a lot of technology. So I wonder who's going to make arbitrage between what technology to choose? Who's going to make arbitrage about what platform to choose? Who's going to make arbitrage about who's going to develop what technology for the future? Now, when I look at the situation of Nissan today, and I see the tens of billions of dollars wasted, the plants which are going to be closed, the community was going to be suffered, the employments were going to be destroyed. Now, we have victims here. We have victims of mismanagement, of lack of vision, and of an obsession for control.
Ghosn is wanted as a fugitive in Japan for jumping bail and fleeing to Lebanon. His 2018 arrest for financial wrongdoing threw Nissan into crisis.
And the news continues here on Net 25. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Tensions continue to escalate in the Red Sea, where a U.S. Navy fighter jet was shot down in what appears to be a friendly fire incident earlier this Sunday. Now, both pilots ejected safely, though one suffered minor injuries. Let's take a look.
U.S. Central Command said
the guided missile cruiser USS Gettysburg, part of the USS Harry S. Truman Carrier Strike Group, mistakenly fired on and hit the FA-18 flying off the USS Harry S. Truman.
Despite claims from the Houthis that they downed the aircraft, there's no evidence to support their assertion.
The armed forces have successfully thwarted an American-British attack on our country, during which the USS Harry S. Truman aircraft carrier and several of its destroyers were targeted in conjunction with the start of the aggressive attack on our country last night. The operation was executed with 8 cruise missiles and 17 drones. And by the grace of Allah, the operation resulted in, first, the downing of an F-18 aircraft while the destroyers were attempting to intercept Yemeni drones and missiles.
The Iran-backed Houthis have been ramping up attacks on American naval vessels in retaliation for Israel's offensive in Gaza. Over the weekend, the Houthis fired another ballistic missile at Tel Aviv, injuring at least 16 people. Israeli Commander Daniel Gilzer provided an update on this situation.
In 3 a.m., we call for this scene to save life after a missile. We don't know exactly, it is under check what exactly happened here, but our forces, Home Front Command, came very early to the area together with the fire department, the police, and Tel Aviv municipality. And together we are treating right now in this event. And we have something like, we have 15 minor injuries. And right now we search for any serious injuries, but everything is under control.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed retaliation, labeling the Houthis as the last arm of Iran's axis of evil.
As we acted forcefully against the terror arms of Iran's evil axis, so we will act against the Houthis. Only in this case, we are not acting alone. The U.S. and other countries see the Houthis as a threat not only to international shipping, but to the international order. Therefore, we will act forcefully with determination and sophistication. I tell you, even if it takes time, the result will be the same result as against the other terror arms.
Netanyahu has even suggested a broader strategy which could include direct action against Iran itself. As the situation unfolds, tensions show no signs of easing. The Houthis have vowed to continue their strikes until there's a ceasefire in Gaza. Meanwhile, both the U.S. and Israel have ordered their forces to prepare for further retaliation. Could Israeli plans to confront Iran directly push the region closer to a larger conflict, one that could reshape the Middle East balance of power? A United Nations report says members of the Wharf Jeremy gang in Haiti's portside neighborhood of Cité Soleil killed at least 207 people earlier this month. Now, that's up from the initial death toll of 187. In a new report on the massacre, the UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights said at least 134 men and 73 women died in the attack. Mathay likeness for more.
Some 300 members of the Wharf Jeremy gang went on a killing rampage in early December after being ordered to do so by their leader, Manel Macano Felix. Felix called for the attacks after his child got sick. UN spokeswoman Stephanie Tremblay says the gang leader targeted his victims.
Most of them were elderly individuals who were accused of practicing voodoo and also accused of causing the gang leader's child's disease. Other victims included people who tried to flee the area or who were suspected of having leaked information about these crimes to local media in Haiti.
Many of the victims had been abducted from voodoo temples and religious ceremonies. The killing shocked the Caribbean nation, which has been engulfed in a worsening gang conflict. After the killings, gang members attempted to erase evidence by confiscating mobile phones and burning bodies and dumping them into the sea. The violence has resulted in devastating food shortages, while its neighbors lag on delivering long-promised security assistance. The UN says for the last 15 years, Macano's gang has controlled a small but strategic area between key ports, surrounding warehouses and national highways out of the capital. More than 5,300 people have been killed in Haiti since January and more than 12,000 since the start of 2022. The UN says another 700,000 have been internally displaced. Thomas I. Likeness, Net 25 World News.
Sources say Donald Trump's presidential transition team is laying the groundwork for the United States to withdraw from the World Health Organization on the first day of his second term.
A Reuters source says Donald Trump's presidential transition team is preparing for the U.S. to withdraw from the World Health Organization. The source, a health law expert familiar with the discussions, says it could happen as early as the first day of his new term in January. The Financial Times was the first to report the plan. Trump's transition team did not immediately respond to a Reuters request for comment. The move would align with Trump's long-standing criticism of the UN Health Agency. It would also significantly shift U.S. global health policy and isolate Washington from international pandemic efforts. Trump has already signaled a shift towards domestic health priorities. He's nominated WHO skeptics for top public health roles, including vaccine critic Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Trump's initial attempt to lead the WHO in 2020 was reversed by President Joe Biden, who rejoined the organization. The president-elect has argued that the agency failed to hold China accountable for the early spread of COVID-19. He's also repeatedly called the WHO a puppet of Beijing and vowed to redirect U.S. contributions to domestic health initiatives.
They're literally a pipe organ for China. That's the way I view it. So we're seeing and we're looking and we're watching.
A WHO spokesperson declined to comment directly, but referred Reuters to comments by Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus at a December 10th press briefing. He responded to questions about a U.S. withdrawal under the upcoming Trump White House.
We're ready to work together, and I believe, the U.S. leaders understand that, the U.S. cannot be safe unless the rest of the world is safe.
The Department of Health announced that senior citizens will no longer need a purchased booklet to avail of medicine discounts. DOH Health Secretary Teodoro Herbosa introduced Administrative Order 203-0017, which removes the booklet requirement for discounts under the Expanded Senior Citizens Act of 2010. Previously, seniors had to present a purchased booklet, a valid ID, and a doctor's prescription to get a 20% discount on medicines. Herbosa, who is also a senior citizen, acknowledged that the booklet was an unnecessary burden, and he said, on behalf of President Marcos, we give this gift of convenience and more affordable medicines to all of senior citizens. In other health news, health officials confirmed Los Angeles' first human case of H5 bird flu shortly after California Governor Gavin Newsom declared a state of emergency over the virus. The person who became sick after exposure to infected livestock is recovering at home with mild symptoms and has been treated with antivirals. While bird flu primarily affects poultry and wild birds, the virus has spread to dairy cow herds with 65 human cases confirmed this year. The majority have occurred in people exposed to animals, and there's no evidence of human-to-human transmission in the U.S. California has reported 35 human cases, with most showing mild symptoms. Health officials are urging people who work with livestock to take precautions, including wearing protective gear and avoiding raw milk, which has been linked to the virus in several cat deaths. The overall risk to the public remains low. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on Net 25, I'm Alma Angeles. Thank you all for joining us. Good night.
This program